Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues. With this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 14 of the anime series Sakurada Reset. And this was a highly interesting, investing episode because a large majority of it was effectively this symphony of psychoanalysis as conducted in this sweeping scope by Chiru, giving us sort of the perceptions of the inner workings of the mind of Mishiru, or Honoka, who is this little girl lost and has created this dream world, this, construct in her mind that Kei eventually whittles down and understands, where there was this grand air of mystery that all of Sakurada was, reproduced, but backwards. It's actually a mirror reflection internally to Mishiru, to Honoka. And I found it all absolutely captivating and fascinating to get inside the minds of these characters and find out what their motivations were. It's interesting that Sumire is kind of still playing ever the puppet master behind the scenes as well, being the one and only true friend, according to Chiru, of Chiru. And it's interesting how Chiru approaches Kei with this idea, this concept that Sumire is very much pointedly directing Kei, and he tries to call Kei on it, but Kei is already 3 steps ahead of the game. This cat's a strategist, tried and true, and he's worked so much of this out in his own mind just through observation and interaction and such like that. And of course, all of this comes on the coattails of Sasane, the sort of fence-building chick, dismantling all of the homesteads in that mirror reflection version of Sakurada, because she feels like there's an impurity of soul, of mind, of existence in the existence of this reflective dream world, because Honoka has misplaced her true identity. And we find that all of these things, the monster of the id, the creature that comes out of the sort of mindscape of Honoka, this is representative of her as much as this construct of Sakurada in both estimations, both the mirror reflection backwards version as well as the sort of Sakurada proper that exists just beyond that cloudscape border as Kei figures out. All of this is representative of her being, of her essence, of her mind, of her soul, for lack of having any of that in the real world. And there's just so much. I'm not going to recap everything that was said. I highly recommend, rather, if you haven't already watched the episode, go and watch it. If you already have watched it, go back and watch it again. I actually watched it twice just to really let a lot of it soak in, because it was really fascinating to me. Whenever you get inside the minds of characters and it spells out their motivations, why they are the way they are, even the most despicable character, look at Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII, even someone who is doing something so heinous and despicable as he was, when you understand the motivations behind it, when you understand why he came about to his reasonings, you might find sympathy there, you might find relatability there, or arguably so, even if you don't align yourself to what their motivations are. Like if I was in that person's place, I'd do the same thing. Even if you don't agree with it, you can still at least understand those motivations. You can understand what the point A to point B to point C, what that through line was that led them from the start, where they found themselves at their beginning, to where they ended up, that kind of thing. And that's really what this episode spelled out, by and large. I really loved the character depth in the moments that were going on between Nono and the Catman, and his very much resigning himself to this being all he has left, but this being all he needs. And he doesn't. He's kind of like, as a cautionary tale, he's kind of trying to implore Nono to not be so beholden and swept up to that kind of lifestyle, to eschew actual living and actual interaction with others and actually experiencing life for the sake of being enclosed, being internalized, being solo, not sociable and all these things, because he realizes how much he missed out on, even if this is all he needs now. And I myself, this is something I could personally relate to, because health problems and things like that aplenty have shaken my life up in the last couple of decades, to the point where it's not easy for me to get out and about. It's not easy for me to get out and be sociable, as well as anxieties I've had and things of that nature, which I've made many a stride to overcome, and I've overcome so many of them. But at the same time, whereas I still have that longing to get out there and meet someone and all that kind of thing, have friends and such like that, there is a part of me, much like the Catman, that I can relate to, where I could almost be happy being a hermit for the rest of my life if I didn't have to worry about so many of these various things, from STDs to being beholden to someone else's, wants and desires. And if I'm alone, I don't have to deal with any complications. I can just do what I want, when I want, how I want, and be satisfied for myself. And so there is an argument that I would lean toward in making that case for anyone, that you can be happy while being by yourself, being alone. But I'm of two minds about it, much as this whole episode was speaking about two minds about, Michiru / Honoka, as Haruki is two different sides of her own mind, and her confliction over even the barest perception that maybe Sumire, maybe it's Sumire that Kei wants and desires, not Haruki herself, and the confliction that is building up within her. But I love her resolve in that when the other leg drops and she's confronted with this as arguably, trying to be manipulated by Chiru, not actually another aspect of Haruki's own mind, she faces up to it with sort of the brass tacks, cold hard reality that I know what makes me happy, and what would make me happy is to make Kei happy because of how I feel about him. Even if I feel reservations, even if I feel conflicted about whatever those decisions might be, even if that aligns Kei more with Sumire, I don't believe Haruki actually for 1 minute suspects Kei has that level of interest in Sumire. I think if anything, we've seen that he doesn't. He just wants to help spirit her away. Doesn't want to align with her, become one with her, in a couple romantic sort of framework. I think that's the last thing on his mind. But of course, Chiru, being sort of manipulative as an extension of Sumire's own desires, I guess, and friendship with him, it seems like, they're trying to implant that in Haruki and discombobulate her, and maybe try to do what Okaeri did, try to create a divide between Kei and Haruki. But as I say, so very much as this episode was about the dual natures, the duality of the mind, of the perceptions, of the preconceptions, of the opinions and the beliefs and the thoughts of an average human mind, I'm of two minds about those arguments, about whether striving to find someone to be with, to be around people, to experience life on that level, and as an extension in the extreme, going out and traveling the world and going to all these places you never would have seen, rather than encapsulating yourself down into your one sole living room or bedroom and watching vistas of filmography, recorded at these various destinations. I mean, there's the whole argument for either side of that discussion. Get out and experience life, or stay beholden to yourself and stay comfortable. There's arguments for or against each side, and I think this episode brings up a majority of that. And it's really just what is the utmost fascinating about that is how the characters themselves deign to conduct themselves when confronted with these dilemmas. And so I found this episode highly fascinating, highly intriguing, very much investing, because I'm very curious about this world, and I'm very inquisitive about the natures of the characters, what makes them who they are. And this spelled out a large majority of that. And so, I mean, there wasn't so much forward progression, just an understanding while we are temporarily stationary as to why these characters are doing what they're doing, what their motivations are. And by the end, the actual one aspect of forward progression we're left with is Kei makes Chiru agree to help him with his simulation of trying to spirit Sumire out of the town, rewire the memories of her family, that she never actually passed away those 2 years ago, and give them a happy life. See if that's possible. All for the sake of being willing to try to the nth degree to bring about a reawakening of Honoka, to dispel and dispatch this fake persona that she's created in Michiru, in creating this god as a saving grace, as just the bits and bobs, the little pieces of all of this grand scope of this fantasy dream world that is all representative of who she is as a being. And, of course, Chiru can only but agree, okay, I'll grant your wish. I'll give you the script, that particular script that, Sumire had pointed Kei toward, that he requested. And I can't wait to find out what exactly is contained within it. It has something to do with the Bureau, something to do with abilities, and something to do with the foundations of said Bureau and said abilities, how that all corresponds to each other. So I will be highly fascinated to find out what more this particular volume of the script will debut to us, what more Kei will find out, and how that will play into the grander scheme, the grander design of things as we continue on with the series. Love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of this particular episode of Sakurada Reset, if you've seen it as well, if you found it as compelling and fascinating as I did, if you thought it was completely and utterly uninteresting and uninvesting, anything goes in the comments below. Just love having that conversation. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty whirlwind, a captivating episode for me personally. And we'll see where we go from here. So otherwise, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well. And I'll catch you all later. Peace.